Welcome. My name is Heather from Sharebird, a site where top product marketing leaders share their expertise. We're really excited for today's event. We have a fantastic panel on mastering AI as a product marketer. I want to share a couple of announcements before the panel. First, we have launched Sharebird Playbooks. Advancing in your career means leveling up your craft. We're building out playbooks that give you actionable insights from the product marketing leaders at Anthropic, HubSpot, Gusto, and many others who have helped their company go up market, improve their win rates, and drive market adoption, including actual results, lessons learned, and tips. If you have L&D budget, you can subscribe to Sharebird Playbooks at the link that I'll drop in the chat in just a second. Next, for the format for this event, the first half of the event will be questions from the moderator, and the second half will be live questions. There's a Q&A feature on Zoom, so go there to add your questions for the panel and share your questions right away so that others can upvote them. Lastly, our next Q&A panel event is July 23rd on improving product marketing skills. You can register for that event at the link in the chat, which I will share as well. And with that said, I'd love to hand it over to Jackie and the panel to introduce themselves and get started.
Great. Thank you, Heather, for having us. We are excited for this panel on mastering AI, one of the sort of hottest topics today. My name is Jackie Palmer, and I have been in product marketing since, gosh, I don't even want to admit how long it's been. But I've been a Sharebird mentor for a number of years, and hopefully you guys have all seen some of my AMAs and Q&As. So I am excited to be here with this panel. I guess let's go around the room. Who wants to start first? Ramon, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I can go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Raman. Like you, Jackie, I've been in product marketing for a long time, but I did not start my career in product marketing. I came from an engineer to a product manager to a product marketing route. Been at Microsoft, DigitalOcean, SourceGraph, and most recently Confluent. And yes, looking forward to a great discussion today.
Great. Dave, do you want to go next?
Sure,
I'm
happy
going
to.
around based on who's on my screen first. So
Well, thanks, Jackie, and thanks to Sherwood for hosting this. Dave Esper, and I lead core product marketing at Twilio. I also had a roundabout way of coming into product marketing. I worked in nonprofits and then worked in campaigns, and I loved personas and positioning and getting closer to product, and that's how I found my way here. So, looking forward to this panel and learning from the other panelists as well.
fabulous. Desiree, you're next.
Great. Hi, guys. I'm Desiree Motamedi. I'm actually the CMO of Data and Platform at Salesforce. I actually have a product marketing team across my portfolio. So I cover a bunch of different products from Tableau to MuleSoft to Informatica to Data 360 to trusted services, developer services, Agentforce, like all the things kind of wrapped up in one. So I have distinct product marketers underneath my team, but I myself have been a PMM. I've worn multiple hats throughout my career. And I'm really excited to be here today because we are very knee deep in AI right now. So we'd love to share some of the things that we're building today.
That's awesome. So maybe Desiree, I'll start with you since you've got a lot of sort of data background, lots of different product marketers working on things and obviously seeing a lot of things across Salesforce. Let's start out with, I'd love for everybody to answer this, but what are some of the key ways that you and your teams are using AI today? Like, what are the top workflows that you're seeing? What are the top use cases? Where are people benefiting most? And let's keep it, on what we're practically doing, like not just pie in the sky things, but what are you actually seeing results from on a day-to-day
Yeah,
basis?
I can start. So we, our company has been a Google shop for a while. So we had Gemini for a while, like over, we've all had access to Gemini pretty much for the last few years. But we recently gave everyone access, probably in the last 6 months, Claude Code, which is pretty amazing. So my entire marketing org has access to it. And initially when we started out a few years ago, a lot of people were building gems and like being able to kind of shortcut some of the prompts that they wanted to do for like content creation, blog creation, a lot of things that were very easy from like you know, content and website materials, things like that. But what's been really fascinating is now that everybody has Cloud Code, a lot of vibe coding is happening. A lot of vibe coding. So a lot of local host URL paths that we see in these reviews that we have. But what's really awesome is just seeing that people are, A, that they're excited about how they can actually connect the data across the systems that we use today. So one other thing too, we're a big Slack shop. Slack has an MCP, so we can actually connect Slack to these experiences. We also can, connect our Google Drive and all of our data assets there too. So now people are really creating like really bespoke like dashboards or creating very bespoke ways that create content for campaigns or the list goes on. You should see the things that people are dreaming up, which is pretty cool. Even like video editing, some people have really created some like really cool ways to make that a lot faster because we do a lot of demos on our products and how that works. But the thing that I've been really pushing my team is that you really have to build a foundation that then you can scale. Because as I mentioned, you see those local host URL paths. That's really meaning that they're not sharing it to everyone, that's only within their own environment. So we now are hosting a lot of these experiences on Heroku. We want to make sure that it's VPN enabled so that we're not sharing to the broad world. It's only within our organization. Because that's what happens. It's like they get all these tools and they're like, let me just share this with everybody, not thinking about the governance and making sure that that data is not being compromised anyway. So we're really building out that layer of like, making sure it's a secure platform for building. We have login now, so we know who people are, what they're actually creating and what they're looking at as well too. We have a central repository. We have a Git that we all share all of our projects that are happening as well now too. We really, and analytics is another one. So we want to see what people are using in these experiences as well too. So it's been a journey, but it's been a lot of fun.
Are you having everybody that sort of builds all these things? Are you having like a show and tell, or I keep thinking back to kindergarten when you like bring your thing from home. It's like, here's what I built.
Yes,
What
yes.
else are you building, right?
Yeah, so we have of course, our all hands where we share these projects out. We also have our Slack channel where everyone can post and say, "This is what I'm working
Perfect.
on." And then the other thing too is I mentioned we have like this. We're calling it the PMM Marketplace. So every like person who's wanting to build something, they want to find others that are interested in joining them in building a project. They can find people to collaborate as well too, so that it doesn't feel like we're like bumping into each other, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people are like, I have this idea. And then someone says, like, I have the same idea, but then they don't even know that they're building the same thing. So we're trying to really hopefully create that collaboration in the best way possible.
That's great. That's great. Ramon, Dave, who wants to talk about use cases and workflows now? I'd love to
Yeah,
hear from both of you.
I can talk about mine. I feel for me, counterintuitively, the the most important use of AI still is research. And there's this philosophical debate going on in the world today about like how important is learning now for humans? Or should we just let AI learn, become smart, and continue to do all the work for us? Or is it important for us to also continue to build on our knowledge? And I feel like I have, at least for now, I have arrived at the conclusion that yes, it is very important for us to continue to build knowledge so that it gives us both taste as well as intuition as we are making decisions. So for me, the deep research functionality in Claude actually has been very, very useful to quickly ramp up on a new area. Like for example, we as product marketers, we are always required to be slightly above average subject matter experts in whatever area that we are in. Like you can't, so that's where like product marketing is slightly different from rest of marketing. And I always feel that there's limited time and energy that you can spend on like skilling up on a new area, digging deep on a new domain area, and so on. So I feel like when I use the deep research functionality to produce a 10-page, highly condensed information dense report about something new, it very easily like condenses 3 weeks of research into a couple of hours. I can spend some good time on just reading the research report and build a really strong intuition that allows me to then ask smart questions and connect the dots about a new area, whether it is for producing messaging, positioning, content creation, or whatever. So for me, like research is the most important one. Learning is the most important thing, and I'm able to accelerate my learning quite a lot. And then obviously like use Claude Code to build internal tools like sales enablement. Now
Mhm.
I don't need to rely on a design team or an internal, engineering team to build an ROI calculator that my sales team can use
Right.
to get in front of say for a sales conversation and so on. So those two I would say are the most important ones.
For the research, I'm curious, is there a specific Claude? You said you were using Claude for the research. Is there a specific Claude model you found works better, like when you select which one than the other ones for that research? that
To be
deeper
honest, I
search?
use the default. Whatever is the default option, it almost always. I'm pretty sure if I play around with the options, play around with the the effort level as well as try different models, I can find slightly different results. But the default almost always gives me great results. And the other thing I also do is we use Glean internally. And Glean is useful in the sense that it is able to ground your research with internal context, whatever internal information exists within the company about the problem space that you're trying to research. It can give you more context about what this team has already thought about or what that salesperson has already done in this area. So it is able to give you better context about a slightly expansive kind of a report.
Yeah, we were using Glean at Active Campaign as well. The hesitation that I always had with it was because it's answering questions in Slack without us having to do it, which is great. Trust me, as a product marketer, I don't want to answer the 10th question for the same thing. But are you finding that it is actually giving the correct information? Because I found it was hard to make sure that it was always looking at the right and most latest up to date
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
things.
I think my experience is it depends. I think
Yeah,
what it depends on is if you're trying to find answer to a very specific question, which is actually a fact-based kind. For example, how many competitors play in this area, or how many of our customers do X. So those things are very fact-based and they can be answered easily by looking at some internal database. If you're connected to Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever, you can answer those questions. But if you're trying to answer a question which internally we don't necessarily have better information than the wider internet has, then I feel like it does a poor job because it is overzealous in terms of definitely inserting internal context when internal context is no better than what
right.
Claude can do by default. So in that effort to necessarily bring in internal context, it will weigh more heavily on the opinion of your coworker who may have written some internal document 3 months ago. So that's where the difference lies, I feel. But otherwise, I feel like
Yeah.
it's a useful tool.
Dave, how about you? Any workflows to add on to research? We talked about research, we talked about sales assets, we talked about analytics, dashboards. How about you? Any other workflows to add on to that list?
Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about 5 or 6 tools, I think, in the course of a few minutes.
Yeah.
And similarly, we rolled out Gemini, we rolled out GPT Playground, API Access, Claude Code most recently. A number of the team have been working there. And what I've seen is there are some folks who are really leading and they're super down to experiment, try things out, work with partner teams. And there are some folks who are maybe slower adopters or aren't as confident in using it. So similarly, a lot of that knowledge sharing has been really important, and then taking some of those experiments and making them more programmatized. And I think that's where we're really at right now, which is moving from some of the experiments to how do we build this into more of a cogent roadmap across the team. So in addition to doing some market research, we've also procured some tools that specifically focus on user research or buyer research outside the market. And that's something that's been really useful for our team, is pulling in not just the context that we have internally, but how does it enable us to scale, move faster on some of that market context that is specific to the buyers and users we're looking at. So, thinking about different types of context sources, and that's been something that's been really helpful in entering the room with product in particular and having a really clear point of view.
Are those real users, or are those AI created parallel users? Or I'm blanking on the name for it right now,
Yeah,
but
it's a great
you know what I
question.
mean, right?
We were just talking about synthetic
Synthetic
audiences
people.
this week. This really focuses on actual users, and so going out and procuring that. Those folks, traditional path was market research firm, tens of thousands of dollars, a few months, come back with a slide deck, and we're still doing some of that work, but also trying to move faster and just to match the pace of the market. The other interesting thing we've found is using tools like Notebook LM. It's allowed us to disseminate that research a lot more easily. So producing podcasts, producing decks that we don't have to spend as much time with, one-pagers, that's been incredibly useful as long as we have a perspective on what we want to convey. Because I think that judgment becomes even more important. Folks talk about taste and judgment all the time. to me, that means having that point of view, because these are non-deterministic tools. And if you keep prompting, you'll get a bunch of different answers. You'll continue refining. There's no endpoint, and so that judgment becomes even more important. The second thing we're working through is really around launch copilots. So how do we create more scaffolding to reduce some of the work? So it's not starting with the first draft, the positioning framework. It's actually how do you scale out things like FAQs, release notes, the templated stuff that takes so much time. How do we become a reviewer instead of someone who's originating all that content?
So you take that tactical stuff far. It's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Your comment that it's a good segue to the next topic, which is how do you evaluate tasks you outsource to AI and which tasks human led? Maybe you can dive into one a bit more. We'll go around to again in terms of what you were one where you were sort of deciding to.
Sure. I think I'm losing your audio a little bit. I'm not sure if it's just me. But I think the question is around what do you decide to automate and what do you rely on AI for? I think most critically, you have the context, like humans, product marketers have the context, AI doesn't. So, in my mind, the most important things are if we know the end result or we know where we want to go with it, we know what right looks like, that's something I'm very willing to automate. If it's something that I don't know the answer to, I'm willing to use it as a sparring partner. So we'll think through it, but I want to have a perspective in that. So ultimately, the original thinking ends up being yours. It's not just AI, and we're not just solely reacting to it. So I think about some of those high volume tasks that are lower skill. We're still providing kind of that human in loop quality control or introducing an agent to do some of that quality control, but those we're definitely willing to automate. And then the other piece is around reviewing content. So if we have a set of standards that are very deterministic, we know it has to contain these three things. We want to focus on AEO. So how can we review the content? That's another place where we've been really willing to automate and experiment.
That's great. Is my mic better now, by the way?
It is.
These AirPods are dying, I think. So put them to the side. Desiree, Ramon, either of you want to take that and keep it going in that theme of, sort of human versus AI led?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's human in the loop for us. We don't have anything that's just completely automated. We always need to take a look and see what the output is. It's interesting though. We do have some tooling, especially on the Salesforce side. So our Agentforce side, we have something called Agent Script, which you can actually control determinism. So there's dynamic ways where it doesn't, if you need determinism, that it actually answers the answer that you need, especially when it comes to product details or how something actually works. So we actually created something where we scraped all of our help center content, which was really great because it actually tells you how the product works. So we would always make sure that you have the answer of exactly, it would never deviate if that would make sense. And so we wanted to make sure that that was in place. And it really helped our PMMs of making sure from a messaging standpoint or a differentiation standpoint, so it knew exactly how the product worked and it wouldn't try to say, oh, you're adding new features that sometimes AI does. Sometimes you're like, the product doesn't work that way. Where'd you get that from? So yeah, we really make sure we review everything. So there's nothing that's automated in the way, from a complete AI experience today.
Yeah, I would say similar. One principle that I've adopted is that, if it is going to be consumed by a human, it must be reviewed by a human, and that there are multiple degrees to that as well. Like, for example, if it's a product launch and in the blog post announcing that product launch is obviously like a high value asset. So it has to be almost completely written by a human. And obviously, we do multiple levels of reviews using AI. One thing that I found AI really useful for, especially for content production, is rigor and comprehensiveness. When you are deep in storytelling around a product launch or whatever, sometimes you forget about, okay, I'm telling a great story about my product, but am I following the best practices around how this piece of content should look like? And that's where AI is very helpful. Like, it tells you, oh, maybe you should insert a CTA here. Maybe you should call out like a previous launch. Maybe you should provide a customer example here. So those things are actually very, very useful. So like, I like the term that you use, Dave, sparring partner. For me, with content production, that's exactly how I treat AI as. And then on the other extreme is even for content production, content which is actually going to be consumed by humans, there are multiple types of that, right? For example, it's a landing page inviting people to a webinar or an event. That can actually be templatized. You give it like an input of what our messaging looks like. It's very easy to pull out 3 top level pillars and place them on the on the webinar landing page and create something out of it. So that doesn't need to be reviewed by a human necessarily. But yeah, that's the framework I potentially use.
That's great. Before we leave this topic, I want to go back, Dave, because I think one of the Q&A that was asked by the audience relates to something that you commented on, and that was to share those 3 things that you look for during reviews, Dave, if you have a recollection of what you were saying about that.
Yeah, so we've built it was effectively gems for some kind of AEO best practices. And so things like reviewing the lead of the blog post, and are we clearly communicating launch stage? Are we including FAQs and these certain FAQs as part of it? And so it was something that was a physical Google Doc with a checklist, and suddenly that became something that we could automate and have something review more simply. So it was kind of codifying the best practices we've written down and making it easier for the team. But there's I guess it's probably a 2 or 3 page Google Doc that we turned into.
Of course there is. Of course there is. All right, let's do a couple of maybe, quick topics before we get to the open Q&A. We've got some more questions that were submitted pre the webinar. What is the most surprisingly successful application of AI in product marketing that you've seen? Maybe Desiree, do you want to start with this one?
I mean, actually, as of yesterday, our creative team is really ahead of the game. It's been pretty impressive to see what they did. They built a bespoke platform that you can add characters, you can add scripts, and then they have this video engine that they put underneath that they were using some of the different models to make it happen. I was over the moon when I saw it yesterday because I couldn't believe the output. I've played with Google Veo before. I'm sure all of us have played with Nano Banana. But the Nano Banana, you only get 10 seconds. If you need something that's 15 seconds or 30 seconds, especially for like digital ads. So they are really moving fast when it comes to creative assets, and I was just blown away by it. So I love seeing the creativity, but also like these tools are going to be so easy for us to create marketing assets in a much more simplistic way. The other thing, that I think for all of us, there's always something that's really hard within your organization. And I know this is going to sound like so basic, but I'm going to tell you it's something that's like near and dear to my heart, is a budget agent. Chasing budget, knowing what your budget is across your different businesses, where are we at today? Like just that alone is magic. And we have different operating systems, there's procurement, there's like all these things. So like having it in one view, and we're also, of course, going to be leveraging Slack. So it just makes life so much easier. I know that sounds crazy, but as you know from people managing spreadsheets when it comes to budgets, like that's all going to go away, which I'm really excited about.
That is truly exciting. Trust me, I'm thrilled about that one. Dave, Ramon, best, most surprising application of AI in product marketing?
I was going to just say, Desiree, when that repo's ready, please share it, because that is truly one of the
I
biggest
will.
pains.
I will.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found that has been really useful is as a workshop co-facilitator. We're a fully remote company. And so often we walk into a room with a bunch of folks, and it's a virtual room. We have a lucid board, and we're kind of going through these interactive exercises. And one of the things I love to do is work with Claude on building out a framework for what that facilitation would look like, specific to the problem we have at hand. Then using it to summarize some of the key insights. I'll load the transcript in, pull out in like actions, takeaways. And so it becomes a really good co-facilitator. So I can actually focus on having that conversation, working through the conversation in the room. And then we have a really clear set of next steps for the next session coming out of it. So that's something I've found has been really useful. The other kind of fun thing we've worked on is we were going through a large launch project, and keeping people motivated with Gemini songs has been really fun. So we'll create a 30-second song about where we're at in the launch process. And that was a fun way to use some of the more creative tools.
Yeah, I think I would say I wouldn't say like I've been surprised by the fact that AI is able to do it, but I have been pleasantly surprised by the fact that a lot of people on the marketing team, even non-technical people, are not hesitant to pick up a tool like Claude Code. And even things that I feel like they can do using Claude Cowork, they feel like in many cases they will go to Claude Code and they will use Claude Code to produce something, whether it is for themselves or to share it with other people. And I'm very happy with that because I think that kind of democratizes the act of creation. It gives their power to almost every individual to do things, to build things, and not necessarily being reliant on your partner teams all the time. You can kind of unblock yourself for a lot of these deliverables. So that's been very pleasant.
That's great. That's great. Let's do one more question before we move on to some of the submitted Q&A. And please, if you do have more questions for our panel here, please pop them into the Q&A part of Zoom. So we've already talked a lot about tools and things that you're using, but maybe just recap for everybody so we get it all into one little sound bite. What are each of yours top tools that you're using, and maybe top sort of broader tools that you're using as a product marketer with AI? I mean, this could be like the ones we've been talking about, Claude and Gemini and things like that, but it could be other ones like, is anybody using the tools within the AI tools within Slack, Desiree, for example? So I know there are ones in there.
Yeah, I use Slackbot every day. Slackbot is also powered by Claude, which is also really awesome. So like it just the best part is it has such context about the business and the conversations in our organization. So it just helps us move so much faster, like from either sending a follow-up note to like a customer because it has access to our own Salesforce instance and all of that. So it's just been beautiful for me. Like every day I feel like I have like a partner in crime.
Yeah.
But I use Cloud Code every day, both at work as well as personal. I have a Desiree OS that I've created that's like my schedule with my kids. I have it with my health stuff. I have it with my wealth stuff, like just managing it. It's like a nice little like dashboard that I look at, which is really fun. It was fun building it. And then I'd say the other thing, I use ChatGPT a lot. A lot of like concepting also. I've noticed that what I like to do with Cloud Code is like I'll get prompts from ChatGPT, or if I'm hitting a roadblock, so I'll use it as a way to then figure out what I need to fix in Cloud Code. So I use them both,
Interesting.
which is really interesting. And I love that. And actually, I know a lot of devs that do it too. So it's been great. And as I mentioned, I'm trying to really play with these video products. So Google Veo and Nano Banana. Yeah, I started to play with some of these like smaller stuff, but then I gave up. Like I tried Gamma, if anyone knows what Gamma.ai is for like presentations, didn't really work what I wanted. So yeah, hey, I can't wait to hear what other people are using because I like testing out new tools too.
Exactly. Exactly. Ramon, Dave?
Yeah, I'm big Claude user. I use all three: chat, Cowork, as well as code. I actually find the AI functionality in Google Sheets quite interesting. Like, I find that if there is any like data manipulation, analysis, create this table, filter this data, or whatever, I don't do it myself now. I just give those instructions to Gemini embedded within Google, and it's able to do it very effectively. And then Glean. I think these three would be my everyday tools.
Awesome. Dave, how about you? What are your top three?
Say Claude as well. Spent a lot of time in Claude Code, and we also use Playground quite a bit. And I've actually found that some of the prompting, especially for content review, if I'm building an agent specific to a persona, there's just a little bit more granularity that I can get to there. We also have a few tools across the business, things like GetWise to do some of that research that I mentioned earlier, and are exploring how that ties into other tools like Marvin, which also has an MCP. So we're probably early days in building out a more cohesive stack, at least within product marketing. There are certainly other teams within the broader organization that are kind of leading and how they're using some of the existing APIs and MCPs and plugging those in.
Awesome. Well, let's start taking some of the questions from the audience. I see a couple of them already coming in around content. Let's maybe deep dive a little bit in content. There are a couple ones, for example, are you seeing a dependence on AI to create content? And the answer there is a heavy yes. This person struggles with some of the AI slop that lands on their desk, especially awareness tofu content, top of funnel content. And another one kind of connected maybe farther down in the funnel is we can all create more and more content, but how are you seeing sellers actually consume product marketing created content? The days of high spot maybe feel over. What's the new way for sales in the moment? So maybe one of you could take a top of funnel example on content and maybe the AI slop. One of you could take a later in the funnel example. Take your pick. Let's see what you guys have to say about those topics.
Yeah, I can take the top of the funnel one. Maybe there was a time when there was a lot of like undifferentiated top of the funnel content created purely to appease the Google algorithm. And that doesn't work anymore because, it's not humans who's searching for all of that now. It's like agents. So I feel like, again, I go back to my principle about if you think the content that you're putting out is going to be consumed by a human, and it's a high value asset in the sense that I can actually move the needle for my business. I can convince somebody to come and try my product or have a conversation with the seller, then I think it is worth putting enough effort in. And do not AI is a generic engine, right? It is the best practices of the internet all woven together. So that's it. It will give you an average thing. An average thing is a good place to start with, but if it doesn't contain your opinion, your storytelling, your unique point of view, it'll only be as good. So I feel like that's where I draw the line. Like sometimes I feel like even starting from a template is not great because it biases you. It gives you like something to anchor, and then you never move too far from that anchor. So where I start is I give it my point of view, and then tell me like, okay, you tell me AI whether this fulfills the best practices of writing a blog post or whatever, but do not change the intent or the soul of the message that I'm trying to put out. So that's how I think about it. And a lot of top of the funnel content about um, you know, for example, which is not product specific but problem space specific, how to do X using Y, or how to think about investing in this area or whatever. That type of content is becoming less important now. So I think it is more about whether you have a unique point of view. Are you able to tell a differentiated story or not? I think that thing is becoming more important, which is where AI is not very helpful beyond just reviews and giving you best practices here or there. That's how I think about it, but curious to hear what experience others have.
I've actually had really good success only because I always make sure that we look at what is our differentiation when you look at all the other players in the ecosystem. And what's great with AI is that it can give you that snapshot of like what everyone else is doing. And so once you have that, that's your parameter of like, okay, how do we stand out from the crowd? And we really lean into that as much as we can because I always like give my team a hard time when we're in reviews where I see like some like headline or some kind of messaging. And I said, can I just put any competitor and they can say the same thing? And when I just do that as like the first marker, then they're like, oh, okay, great. That's great. And they put that again in their prompt to like make sure that that comes through. And you start to see things that become really bespoke to what we offer that no one else can really say. And that's powerful. So I think I've seen it the opposite where we give them that like guidance and then they start to really come through on that top of funnel. Yeah, in a really differentiated way.
Do you have anything to add, or you want to move to
No, I
later?
think what I've noticed is it often happens in the handoff to partner teams. And so the transfer of information, having the other human who's prompting actually understand some of those key differentiation value points, being able to ask the questions, that's actually one of the most critical connection points. So it's that context. It's how do we imbue that additional context that we have as product marketers in our stakeholders so that they can look at things critically. If we're prompting with a lack of context, I think that's so often where we end up with AI slop, where it's missing some of those really key points. And that's also probably a good note back to us that our positioning framework is missing some details, or we haven't refined it quite as much as we'd like. So that's been one of the primary places is how do we ensure that transfer of information is still happening, And that could be just centralizing the repo, but it also means that that template needs to be really accurate.
I'm muted. One sec. How about the sales content? Let's move on to that. There was that first question I read off, but I also actually see another one in the queue as well. So, the first one, as a reminder, that I read off was, how are we seeing sellers actually consume product marketing created content? I assume by that this person means AI created content. And then the parallel to that is, what kind of content are we creating besides the ROI calculator, which I think, Dave, you mentioned, or other collateral? Are there other things that we're building, that you're both all building through AI, that will actually help the sellers sell better, faster, more? So let's talk about AI created sales content.
I'm in a bit of a unique situation because we're Salesforce and we have Slack and we have some really interesting solutions. So we bought a company called Qualified recently. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's actually really cool, but it's a AI agent that's on your website. It's called Piper. What's beautiful about it, if you haven't seen it, it is a little freaky because you see this person that's like talking to you a little bit, but they basically take all of your knowledge assets, but very much what I said before, of like the help center content and all that, so it can answer the questions you want. But what's so great about it then, of course, gives us the pipeline. That's why it's called Piper, if anyone didn't realize that. That's the fun name of it. But because of that, then we also have Slack. And Slack is really, honestly, our home for everything. As I said, it's connected to Salesforce, our own instance of Salesforce for all of our accounts. It's also where we house all of our PMM materials. Like we have canvases for each of our product lines. We have data sheets there. We have customer stories there. Everything is there. So I think the whole point of why I'm saying this is like once all your data is connected, and that's why I think we're a little bit different because we really made a concerted effort because we are our own, we drink our own champagne, as I like to say, because we then tell that story externally. It really changes the game for like not just the hallucinations, but it's like you can tell that it's actually accurate, actually has links to where you're getting the content from, all of that. So my advice to everyone is like you need to make a concerted effort of connecting all your data assets that then help that sales team like to be able to understand the customer on the back end or know any competitive plays that are happening or know your customer examples and stories. Like when all that's together, the content just gets better and better for your sellers. And so I'm seeing it happen here and it's pretty magical. So I'm hoping that you guys have good partners with your IT teams to make that happen, which I think is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think one thing that I can share is that, by the way, how sellers consume PMM created content probably doesn't change whether depending on whether the content was created by yourself or by AI. I think the dynamics there probably don't change. The thing that I've struggled with sales focused content is that we all love to believe that the beautiful messaging frameworks that we have created and the one central pitch deck that we have created is the only thing that the sales uses in their conversations. But the reality is that there are hundreds of pitch decks, multiple messaging, stories here or there. And I feel like we always had this philosophical debate with sales around, no, 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 you shall use this document. Do not build your own. You don't know what you're talking about or whatever. And they're like, no, you don't know. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to like this regulated financial services customer who does high frequency trading. So I have to tell them a very custom story there. What do you have for me? And we had to say no in a lot of cases in the past because we were always like strapped for time. Now I feel like producing that custom piece of content. I don't want to admit it, but it's very easy now. If we have our fundamentals right, and if somebody comes to me and says that XYZ parameters of industry, customer, solution type, whatever, can you give me a piece of content around that? It is very easily doable now. It can actually be automated as well. But even for a human being, you can use Claude or whatever, do it in a few minutes as long as you have the fundamentals ready. So
Yes.
I found that to be actually, just to answer the question of in the moment insight, I found that to be very useful.
That's what I've found as well. Like if you've got your central messaging, all of your product documentation, all your, sort of launch message, all of that, if that's in that central place, and like you said, you've got the right things connected, then the sales team can actually create their own one pagers.
Yes,
What
yes,
a shocker, like let's get them going in Claude and getting them to create their own and pull it into all the different tools that they can create a deck in, and it's magic. It's magic.
We're also playing with Canva MCPs now too, because we have our own like templates and all that as well too. So once that happens, as you create those content, if you have like a data sheet template or whatever, then as you said, you can create really bespoke, look and feel of assets that are, I think, really cool too. So yeah.
Dave, anything to add on this sales content topic or?
The problems of governance and verifiability become even more important. One tool that we've been using quite a bit is Notebook LM. So we have a dedicated launch Notebook LM with every product launch, and that enables us to add in technical documents, launch FAQs, positioning frameworks, and it's queryable. So we shift from guessing what sales needs or go-to-market needs to allowing them to ask the questions that they have. And that's been something that we've seen a lot of success with. And I'm excited for some of the traditional enablement tools to catch up there a little bit, because I think we're still treating it as a content repository or effectively a DAM and not using it in the way that sellers are actually thinking and at their pace. So infrastructure, I'll echo what everyone's saying. Infrastructure is really key. It's getting all that data together. It's governing it and then making sure that people know where they can go for the source of truth.
I do want to come back to this other question that's got a couple of thumbs ups in it, but I do think that this one that I just saw kind of is a good follow through to what you just said, Dave, which is how are your companies supporting the use of AI? Do you have an AI policy in place? Do you have enterprise licenses? Do you share co-works? How are things set up across departments? And actually maybe that goes to the other question that I was wanting to come back to. You all were talking a lot about Claude Code, but not as much about co-work. So here's two questions about co-work. Any comments on that as you talk about, sort of how the companies are each supporting the use of AI and what policies are in place?
For company-wide, we have stringent policies around AI and the tools we're using. It's really critical that we're ensuring trust. Data governance, things are vetted. And so there's a full team centered around enterprise technology that validates those. Our leadership has been very willing to explore new technologies. And so making that business case, bringing it in, but it does move at the pace of a public company. And that's for the safety of all of us and our data. One of those is Claude Cowork. So looking into building that business case right now, and we have Claude Code through our engineering team. That's how we were able to access that. But in my personal life, I use Cowork a ton. I built my own financial tracking tool and then learned that I probably am just going to pay the monthly subscription for someone who's going to maintain it full time. But I think it's been really fun to play with that in my personal life, and I'm excited when we can bring it to the team.
Yeah, I think maybe I can talk about that co-work versus code example. If I found that when I need to perform like a complex task, but one-off, like for example, take this PDF, convert it into something else, or extract insights and text and images out of it and do something with it, build a landing page or whatever, I use Cowork. Although I can perform that task with code as well, but I think Cowork is useful for those one-off complex tasks, automating something complex but one-off. And when I want to produce something which I'm going to use on a consistent basis, either for myself or somebody else in my team, then I use code, like to produce an artifact, like an app or a landing page, or whatever, a ROI calculator, as I mentioned earlier. So that's how I think about between those two tools. And the other thing I would say about like the two companies that I've previously worked for, both have been actually very encouraging in terms of like go try out tools, and if you find something else new, come back and we'll try and see how to make an exception around those. So they have been very good about people trying out and building knowledge and awareness and competence around those tools. My general observation is that I don't think we have reached the stage where we have this central AI generated AI operated operating system on which everyone is kind of relying, and it has all the knowledge and intelligence of the company or whatever. Maybe there are some companies who have gotten to that stage. I haven't seen one yet. But as a like Silicon Valley always talks about the 10x engineer, I feel like as a personal productivity tool, it does allow every product marketer to become a 10x product marketer. You know, in terms of like accelerating how much you can produce, accelerating how much you can allow other teams to run by themselves, accelerating your own learning and research. From that perspective, I found it to be extremely, extremely useful. But as a cen- as a CPU for your company, I think that's still a story that sells only in LinkedIn thought leadership.
Desiree, anything to add on the um,
Yeah,
AI monitoring by companies or sort of
we have company-wide
policy?
deployments, as I mentioned. So we have Gemini and then, of course, Cloud Code. We actually don't use Cowork. There's a small, like, little deployment for some folks. They kind of did this, I think, almost purposeful because they wanted to see what the usage would be, and then dial back from there, which I thought was really interesting. So there are some pockets, I think, of people playing with it. I will say though that when it comes to other AI platforms, we do limit what people can actually expense. So they actually can't charge, an OpenAI charge. They can't charge even Claude as well. But they do want us to play with other tooling. So like, as I mentioned, I was like really looking at some of these video tools and seeing like what's there and available. And they actually do allow for that. And they want us to see like if it's sticky enough and if you get more folks using it, then they'll look at more of a company-wide deployment. The only thing I was going to also mention that I think is a concerted effort that happens at some companies is that there was conversation of like centralizing, building some of these experiences under like the IT organization. And I'm going to tell you, I think that's a big mistake. And the reason being is that, as marketers, we understand what good looks like. We understand we have the domain expertise. We also understand the craft so well. And that is the most powerful part of leaning into this AI world today. Reason being is like then you prompt it the way that you know what good looks like. You are giving it the feedback and like doing like the constant iteration and all of that. And so there's never going to be an IT person that will understand those nuances other than the marketers. And so I think it's up to us to really, really again build the muscle of learning some of these tools if it's new, if code if I think a lot of people get really nervous with Claude Code because they're like, I'm not a developer, but I didn't think I was a developer and now I have a Git repo. So like it's just it changes the game when you start to play with it. And I always joke now I have like literally 9 terminals open on a machine. It's like my new browser. So like it's really fun once you get into it. And honestly, all the I guess like video tutorials that are out there, even from Claude themselves or even on YouTube or whatever, it really will help you get started in a fast way. So highly recommend it.
Awesome. We've got maybe time for one or two more questions. There was one that I think coming back to what you originally started with, Desiree, around some of the examples that you gave in terms of dashboards and analytics. So there was one that I thought would be interesting. Have you seen any good examples of product marketing dashboards created by AI for people to measure their work and then use it as a portfolio option to apply to product marketing jobs? So how are you creating dashboards in AI to measure product marketing and also maybe measuring some of the AI?
Yeah, my comment was a little bit different. It was more about when they're building these agents and then the usage of these agents across my department, right? Because you want to see if people are using it. We haven't created anything that shows like the value from a PMM standpoint yet. I think that's going to take us a while to see what that looks like from an ROI standpoint. The reason being is like you can deploy anything out there. The question that I have is like, are people using it? That's what's important, right? So, and also, you create a way to see what is favorite, like so you want to see like, hey, this like budget, agent is very used because everyone has to check their budget, right? Or maybe there's a new one where someone built like we're actually there's a campaign builder one, which is really great. So like seeing how many people are using that too. It's more from that lens versus seeing the ROI from a PMM lens. Does that
Are
make
you
sense?
using AI to build those AI monitoring dashboards? Because I think that was part of the question too. Like, how are you
Yeah,
using AI for that?
yeah, we are. So like the other thing too is so we use Tableau. It's one of part of my portfolio as well. And so what's great is we can plug, there's a Tableau MCP, so we can plug that into anything that we're building. So you can pull that data in real time, which is great. So like yes, the way that we would do it is we put that tracker in and then we're able to then bring it into the agent experience or even in Slack. That's another way that we do it too. And there's Slack skills and all that as well. So yeah, yes, we are using it from the AI lens too.
Dave, Ramon, any AI dashboards or dashboards created by AI examples that you can comment on?
I don't have specific examples for that, but I think, this is slightly different from AI topic, but proving the value of PMM, I would recommend please do not create a dashboard for that because, it may make you feel good, but nobody else is going to believe it. So I think we in product marketing need to embrace the reality that we live in this hand wavy zone sometimes, where your value is understood based on, you know, it's very hard to quantify. And it's like, how successful are your partner teams? How successful are your client teams internally? I think that kind of determines your value. It's not metrics like, oh, how many people saw this content that I created, or am I accountable for signups or pipeline or product adoption? I think those are philosophical debates. I would say continue being a subject matter expert and continue being like a good partner for everyone in the team, GTM, product engineering, everyone. That would be my recommendation. With or without AI.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's do one more question. I'm going to do a mashup of a couple of things because I think this is an important topic. One of the questions was around how do you evaluate product marketing candidates as you're hiring them? How do you evaluate their mastery of AI? I had a question from the pre-submitted ones that I had seen that was around how do you see AI changing the product marketing role itself? I think those two are interconnected. So, how are you guys thinking about the product marketing role, hiring people, evaluating people as you're trying to hire, evaluating people that you already have on your team, helping them? How are you giving them the resources to further themselves in that career path? Dave, any comments you want to kick us off with? Then we'll go around again.
Sure. I have two thoughts. The first is when I think about a really great product marketer, it's someone who's hungry and eager to learn. And they want to learn the context of a business. They want to learn an audience. And ultimately, they want to bring that skill set and that desire to the team. So that's the first thing I think about when I'm thinking about bringing anyone on board. To that end, I don't test for AI proficiency. I think things are changing so fast that if you learn one tool, it's going to change as soon as a new model rolls out. So I look for that curiosity, that comfort and ambiguity, and the desire to learn. The second thing is when I think about these tools automating so many of the kind of earlier stage tasks, things that a traditional early in career product marketer would think about. It actually enables a product marketer to punch above their weight class because you're suddenly learning the craft, but you have these tools that can 10x your abilities. And so the thing that I think about, it kind of goes part and parcel. It's like, do you have that ambition? Do you have that curiosity? And are you willing to learn the core skill set of being a good product marketer, understanding the audience, how to construct a good story, what good positioning looks like, how do you differentiate a message, how do you interpret that knowledge? Like that becomes the core skill, and that's something that's so inherently human. And so these tools just become the accelerator. So what I think we'll see, it's equally important to invest in those early in career folks and folks moving up through the product marketing pathway. But the people who are really good at embracing the tools and learning the core craft are going to be even more successful and move up even faster.
Sorry, I'm muted. Who wants to take the next one? Or take it next, rather?
I'll jump on this, Dave. I'm the same boat. It's all about curiosity. I did like a little of a small project where I said I was going to work with some of my PMMs on a project from like Monday to Friday, and I spent like an hour with them every day to kind of see the progress of it and see also like how they were learning and like teaching what I've also learned as well too. And I think it really is up to each person. Like I kind of see it. Like you kind of see if someone is like really interested or problem solving, because that's the other interesting thing too, because I'm sure all of us have dealt with this before where you hit your token max. And so I had that happen with one of my folks on the team, and I thought it was hilarious because they hit the token max and then they couldn't do anything. But because we have Gemini too, I was like, did you then maybe go to Gemini to continue working. And so then they started to realize that was the way to kind of figure out their workflow whenever they hit the max on Claude and then moved over there. So it's really seeing someone who's thinking outside the box of like, okay, I can only get this far. How do I, and that they have the hunger to like solve for it. Because guys, I can tell you when I'm trying to solve for something, I'm going to make it happen because I'm like so excited to make it happen. So I really look for that kind of quality, especially now.
Ron, take us home. Let's close this
Yeah, no,
out.
I think I completely agree with Dave. As I said earlier, like for me, the two principal uses of AI are learning and building. And that's exactly what I want to see in a candidate as well. I think curiosity and then using that curiosity and knowledge to produce things that are valuable for both your customers as well as internal stakeholders. Those are the two things. What I want to see these days in candidates is like, can they like can they learn and build quickly? For example, if I give you kind of an ambiguous enough problem about my problem space, in the past, I would not have expected you to build all this context about my business before you come and talk to me during an interview. But now I want to see, like, if I give you like 24 hours in advance, can you build sufficient enough context and produce something reasonably good enough out of that? And I think it has been very helpful, both in terms of like willingness of people to jump into a tool and try and do these things, and also like, are you willing to spend a couple of hours in just producing a deep research report and reading about the business? Because that is the kind of a thing you might be required to do even in your job on a daily basis. So I think those two things I look for, and it has been very helpful. It actually is able to differentiate quite a few people.
I think you're right because we talked about using AI for experimentation, but we also need to be experimenters ourselves and have that mindset and have that curiosity. And those are the people that are going to succeed in this new world.
Yep.
So, awesome. Well, Heather, let's hand it back to you to close us out. Thank you to this amazing panel for such a great discussion. We didn't get to every question, but I think we answered a lot of them and had a really good set of topics here. So, Heather, back to you.
Yeah, thank you to our panel and to our moderator. We work really hard to curate the best product marketing mentors for you to learn from, including the people on this panel. When you're ready for your next job, I recommend looking for jobs on their teams. If you had a question that wasn't answered, you can search thousands of answers on sharebird.com or ask it on an upcoming Sharebird AMA. As a reminder, our next event is July 23rd on improving product marketing skills, and you can register for that event at the link in the chat. Lastly, if you have any questions or feedback for us, please email us at events@sharebird.com. Thank you, everyone.